Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass Podcast. This for UFC Vegas 67. This episode of the Dogger Pass Podcast and all episodes of the Dogger Pass Podcast are brought to you by Prize Picks. Use promo code DOP when making a new account to get a match up to $100 on your first deposit. Cody Saftic on the line, producer Megan on the sticks. We're back. It's been like close to a month, Cody. Lots of crazy stuff happened in the MMA streets. I mean, people can go on Twitter to go about it. I'm not going to waste too much breath on this program. You know, we have people who watch on TV in Canada, and it's like, if they're not on Twitter, or if they are on Twitter, they're probably aware of it if they're in the community. If they aren't, then it's meaningless to them. But yeah, if you fish around at Paul Shag, at CJ Saftic on Twitter, I'm sure you'll probably find what we're referring to on that front. Yeah, nice little time off. What is it? Between cards, it's like 27 days or something like that. You know, we complain about cards sometimes and say, oh, you know, this card stinks, this one stinks. It's just like, but then, you know, a couple weeks go by and you get that itch and you're like, I wish there was some like really dusty UFC card on this weekend that I could get some money down. Some would maybe call that gambling addiction. And those some people may actually be right. But, yeah, fun little time off. One quick thing I wanted to bring up, and this kind of has to do with the thing that we're not even really talking about, but I did join a year-long contest. They've been running for 7 years. It's the MMA Analysis Crew. They're on the Hammer.bet, which is run by, like, Rob Pizzola and a bunch of those guys. Those guys have been running the pool for years. You have been on it in the past. I've been on it a few times as well. Rejoined this year. It's $50 to enter. I pinned a tweet about how you can enter if you're interested in that. If you're not interested in that, totally understandable. You know, sending other people's money is a scary proposition these days. But I have personally guaranteed that if these guys turn into, you know, thieves and try to pull that type of thing, I'll cover the entire prize pool. I really don't think it's going to come to it. They all have full-time jobs and do this type of stuff for fun. And they know that, like, if they did try to run away with the money, it's like I would find them, because that's what I'm all about. But yeah, Cody, that's all my house cleaning right now. You got anything to say?
No, actually, I played in the second ever Toastmaster. I played in 3 of them in total. I played in the second ever one. I think Kyle Marley won the first one. I was like, I'm in. Played, finished 3rd. They paid me out right away. Played in the next one, finished 7th. I think you got like your entry money back or something for 7th place finish. And then the year after that, man, I got screwed. So I'm going to play again this year. Like me and A-Rap talked about it. We're just going to field in a team and split the two of us. But they don't open it up 2-3 days out to make your picks. Like literally it could be 7 or 8 hours before the event sometimes. Not always, but sometimes they just don't open it. So like a guy like me who's busy, most people who's busy, I just want to set the picks on Monday or Tuesday. I don't want to wait until Friday before they lock in these lines. So I finished 4th and I missed 2 events. And I emailed them my picks before the event started. And I was like, here are my picks. But they were like, sorry, man, you didn't enter it. So I didn't get them in. And I would have won that year. So I boycotted them for the next 2. I haven't played in Toastmaster the last 2 years. But I'll admit it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun, and they are trustworthy. It's my own bad for not updating it and checking it every 10 minutes. But come on, man. Like when you're doing stuff on the go and you got shit on the go, man, just like set it on the Tuesday or something. I think my only grief. It's a good game otherwise. Don't get me wrong. Love the game. It was fun. And I'd love to win it officially, not finish 4th and complain. I want to be a man. I want to win it outright the proper way.
I think back then it was Jerry who was running it, and you know he had a whole bunch of other things on the go. Now it's Wes and new Sean that are running it. So it's under new organization. They ran it last year. Everyone got paid out within like a few days of the final event of the UFC calendar. So yeah, I'll be in it. I think they usually drop like the picks thing on like Wednesday nights or maybe Thursday. But yeah, Though all of those questions can be directed to them. I don't have the answers. I am backing it if they turn out to be sleazeballs, but I've known these guys like 10 years on this app.
It's a group of guys.
I know that it's not really. I'm willing to take the risk because I know it's not going to happen. Anyway, how about we talk about some fights, Code?
Let's do it.
All right, we got Nassourdine Imavov taking on Sean Strickland. Strickland stepping in on very short notice. Obviously, he was in the main event a month ago, which is kind of crazy that he's stepping up and in with Kelvin Gastelum stepping out. These guys are fighting at 205 pounds here. I think the weight is kind of intriguing. One, obviously, because Strickland's coming in off the couch, but he's a former 170, or he used to be able to slightly make 170 pounds. But Imavov, my biggest concern with him in a 5-round fight, while I was considering Gastelum, is like I wasn't too sure that this guy could fight 5 rounds. Didn't end up putting any money on Gastelum whatsoever. Gastelum hurts or does something to his tooth. Has to pull out of the fight. I have a lot of questions about this fight. Strickland, he throws a lot of jabs. He'll probably win on volume, but we've seen more and more with the judges in this sport now. They're crediting you a lot more on very effective, damaging strikes than, fishing or throwing out a whole bunch of jabs over the course of 25 minutes. I'm going to lean ever so slightly towards Nassourdine Imavov. He's been getting ready for this exact card. I don't know what Strickland's really been up to. There was the Christmas holidays after his last fight, and now he's fighting, at 205. I don't know how many hours he's been putting in the gym over the last month since the loss of Jared Cannonier. I'm leaning towards Imavov, but it's not a fight that I'm rushing to get money down on right now. What about you?
Yeah, I'm not rushing to get money on the Russian either here, Paul. I think there's a lot of hurdles for Imavov to overcome. So first and foremost, I was not going to pick Kelvin Gastelum, but I'm picking up what you're putting down, man. Imavov's a guy that may have questionable cardio. When you look at his UFC debut against Jordan Williams in the 3rd round, he's noticeably tired from teeing off on Williams. He's been having the fight go his way, but again, just the pure work rate causes him to tire out. And then obviously the Phil Hawes fight, he could have beat Phil Hawes on 2 occasions, has him rocked, has him stunned. Very tired, can't quite follow up. So no doubt he's still young. He's improving. He's getting better. MMA Fight Factory Paris have got him in excellent form, and he's been on a career best little streak so far. But you look at the wins, they're all outside of top 15 guys. He's got Ian Heinisch, he's got Edmund Shabazian, he's got Joaquin Buckley. Beats these guys, looks good doing it, but again, he's fighting guys outside of the top 15 of the division. What's more concerning for me is that here's a guy that is known as the Russian sniper. Excellent striking, pieces up Jonathan Meunier prior to coming over to the UFC, known for his striking abilities. That's how he's going to win these fights. But now he's relying a lot more on his wrestling because he's got low striking numbers. Excellent striker, but not someone that's going to really wow you and dazzle you with the output. His fight with Joaquin Buckley, right? 51 significant strikes landed over 15. His fight with Shabazian and Ian Heinisch, it's a little unfair to him because he's getting finishes in those fights. But again, one has to worry if he was going to keep his foot on the gas and fight hard as he did, would he not tire out? The thing with Sean Strickland is 2 good things going for him. One, he's a pretty durable guy. I mean, outside of a spinning heel kick to the face and an Alex Pereira knockout, the guy's chin's generally held up. I mean, he just fought Jared Cannonier a month ago, got hit like 140 times by one of the heaviest punches in the game, and again, withstands to everything. So his durability is there. So if Imavov's going to go and fight a good fight, he needs to fight it for a full 25 minutes, which I'm a little bit uncertain of. Second thing is Imavov likes mixing in the wrestling recently. And Strickland's just a big guy. He's unorthodox. He's hard to take down. He spent a lot of time in Temecula, California with Dan Henderson and Sam Alvey and a cast of characters known for their takedown defense. And he himself, not that he's fought a whole lot of pure wrestlers, which Imavov's not, but I think his takedown defense is good enough. So if this thing's going to be a 25-minute striking affair, what we do know from Sean Strickland, a little bit lackadaisical at times, but the numbers are going to be there, Paul. He just landed 152 on Jared Cannonier. His fight with Jack Hermanson, 153. His fight with Uriah Hall, 186. These are not just high numbers. These are sickening high numbers, Paul. You analyze the sport. His numbers are as good as anybody. Now, are the judges going to look at, well, he's landing a lot of stuff, but not necessarily those big impactful shots? Maybe. But by the numbers, he may go out there and triple up Imavov. For every one shot Imavov lands, Strickland should be landing a couple. Now, you go back to, is he been training? Probably not. Is he coming off the couch? Probably. Can't make 85 on short notice. Didn't even offer to make 195 pounds on short notice. But Sean Strickland walks around at like 225. So he's still cutting 20 pounds to get down to 205, and he's going to be a big guy. 6'1 versus 6'3, height's Imavov's way, but the sheer size, I think, is going to be towards Sean Strickland. So 50-50 fight, main event, greasy. Of course, the UFC is going to get you with one of these coming back. I felt way better about it when it was Imavov Gastelum, but now I've kind of been having a wrench thrown in my plans. I think I'm going to lean towards Sean Strickland. Think this one probably goes to 25 minutes, if not like a late 4th or 5th round stoppage by Sean Strickland. But yeah, first main event of the 2023 season, and I think we're on opposite sides, but we can both agree that it's not exactly a spectacular spot, and the line pretty much dictates it's 50-50 on both sides. So maybe not something you want a ton of investment in, unless you're using it to hedge it.
Yeah, the only reason why I even lean towards Imavov is because Strickland took 137 strikes from Jared Cannonier that last time out. I imagine there was some bruising, it was probably a tough couple weeks coming off of fighting one of the heavier hitters in the division.
If I could counter that point, Paul.
So that is my concern, is that maybe Imavov actually cracks him, and Strickland wasn't completely healed, and he comes up and in and lays a bit of an egg to cash a paycheck, basically. But I'll be more looking at this live. And it's just like, if we get into round 3, it's just like, I'm going to be more interested in putting money on Strickland. Like, I'm probably more likely to put money on Strickland in this fight. I'm going to pick Imavov straight up, but literally, I have no interest in betting this fight. If we get into round 3 and Imavov's showing some signs of tiring out, I know Strickland can go a hard 25. So, yeah, I'm very, very tossed up on this one.
I'm hoping on 2 things. One, his Jack Hermanson win, split decision, but he should have been unanimous. And then his last fight, I thought he won, although it was a close fight. Don't get me wrong. It just depends how you're scoring it. I thought he won. So I'm hoping he goes in here with more of a sense of urgency of, I need to actually put an exclamation point on this. But to your point of him taking 141 significant strikes against Jared Cannonier and what that would do to him, you remember the movie Happy Gilmore, right? In between seasons, he decides to go to the batting cages, right? And get there and toughen up, okay? Because you got to toughen up until the next season, Paul. And he sits there and he takes the baseballs. And does it hurt? Oh, it hurts. But he's using it to toughen up. Sean Strickland, yeah, he's a nut job. He's a nut job. This guy spars hard all the time. That fight with Jared Cannonier, that's just him getting tough. And I'm hoping he brings that toughness in here, because Imavov's not a walkover opponent and has actually been preparing for this fight. But we got to go back to the fact that Ian Heinisch, Edmund Shabazian, these guys are not on Sean Strickland's level. Sean Strickland's been fighting Alex Pereira. Sean Strickland's been fighting Jared Cannonier. Sean Strickland's been fighting the best guys in the world, whereas Imavov's been beating top 15, fringe top 15 guys at best. So I just think that it's a 50-50 fight on paper. The line's giving us a 50-50 fight. One guy is very competitive against the best guys on the planet, and the other guy looks pretty good against guys that are not in the top 10 of the UFC. So again, that to me, I think is the deciding factor.
That is fair enough. All right, we got Dan Ige taking on Damon Jackson. -120 Dan Ige, +100 Damon Jackson. What's your take here, buddy?
Yeah, okay, so everyone knows me if you've been watching the show for a long time. For some reason, I end up betting Dan Ige a bunch of times because I know how talented he is, right? And he's got the Ali Abdelaziz swing, and he's in Las Vegas, and he trains with the best guys ever, and this, that, and the other, sure. But, I mean, yeah, he can wrestle, and he's got a hell of a good chin, and he can scrap. At his best, you know, he's a good little fighter. The problem is he's got the best manager in the game, and they just do him no favors. Look at this murderous run of guys, right? He's winning, right? Beats Edson Barbosa in a very close competitive fight, but I had money on Barbosa. I'll accept the loss. I thought he won. Calvin Kattar, right? Smashes Gavin Tucker in 22 seconds. But then Chang Sung Jung, Josh Emmett, Movsar Evloev. Whoa. Like, he's losing. He lost to Korean Zombie. What kind of bounce back fight is Josh Emmett? To which he gives him a pretty decent fight. He outstrikes Dan Emmett 70-60, and he scores the lone takedown of the fight over Josh Emmett, a credited wrestler. Unfortunately, the big shots are coming from Josh Emmett. He rocks Dan Ige. Again, I'm not saying he didn't lose the fight. He did lose the fight. Now you're on a 2-fight losing streak, and they're like, okay, he needs a bounce back. How about undefeated Movsar Evloev? It just doesn't make any sense. So, to me, maybe he doesn't get to show the best of himself because he's always fighting the best guys out there. But again, I know how durable he is. I know how crafty he is. BJJ black belt. Wrestling, yeah, I think he wrestled at he was like a state champ in Hawaii, maybe like that level, not really big credentials collegiately or anything like that. But when you're training in Las Vegas with such good training partners, and you took down Josh Emmett, like he's got good takedowns. It's just again at the elite level, Dan Ige keeps coming up short. Thing with Damon Jackson though is that Damon Jackson is a very tough guy, a fellow BJJ black belt, but he doesn't really shine in one area. It's not like he's some great striker that's going to be able to pick Dan Ige apart the way that a Korean Zombie or a Calvin Kattar were able to, or an Edson Barbosa, for example, right? He doesn't got that same wrestling like a Movsar Evloev to just drown him on the ground. And in terms of grappling, like, yeah, they're both good grapplers. They're both black belts. If that's a null point, and this ends up being a striking battle, yeah, I'm kind of favoring Dan Ige. This ends up being a wrestling match. Nothing really suggests to me that Damon Jackson is just going to take him down and destroy him. And when you look at Damon Jackson's last couple fights, Charles Rosa, that's a tailor-made fight for anybody, right? He actually gave up 2 takedowns to Charles Rosa, which is a big no-no. But, I mean, for the most part, he takes him down, only lands 41 significant strikes. The next fight with Kopylov Kirk dominates him, but had landed 32. The fight with Daniel Argueta. Daniel Argueta took the fight on a week's notice, moved up a weight class, jumped right into the deep end, and gave this guy one hell of a go. He only landed 32 significant strikes and 2 takedowns over the course of 15 minutes. And then his last fight with Pat Sabatini, I'm going to get this story wrong, I'm sure, but was it his dad that died? Like right before? He took the fight anyways? And he just went out there like
I'm not
passionate man on fire and smashed through Pat Sabatini. Yeah. So that's a credible win, dude. He knocked out Pat Sabatini that quick. That's badass. What I'm getting at is when you look at the other fights, 41 significant strikes against Rosa, 32 against Kopylov Kirk, 32 against Daniel Argueta, and he's relying on some takedowns in the mix. Dan Ige, meanwhile, he's fighting the best guys in the world, and again, still puts up 70 against Josh Emmett in a takedown. Still puts up 80 significant strikes against the Korean Zombie. Still put up 84 against Calvin Kattar, even though that was a 5-round fight. Still went out and landed 79 significant strikes against Edson Barbosa. When he fights elite level strikers, he still scraps them and puts up numbers, right? Damon Jackson is not an elite striker. He'll put up the same numbers, if not more. I think he'll win the striking exchanges. The wrestling, again, you're not Movsar Evloev, so you may get a takedown or two, but Ige, I think, is going to survive, pop back up to his feet, and just make him work. And then over the stretch of the 15, have the higher work rate, land the better shot. So this guy burns me all the time. I'm going to take one more shot here. And I think the line is very fair. Like, it's close-ish. I'm going to take the shot on 50K Dan Ige.
Yeah, I already did take the shot on Dan Ige. I parlayed him with cousin Umar and Rebecki because those lines were kind of on the move at another book. And I'm like, I don't know how else I'm going to play these guys, so I'm going to get in before the line move. So Ige was minus 125 on that ticket. Umar was minus 500 on that ticket at that point, and Rebecki was minus 600 on that ticket. It all comes out to plus 167. Yeah, I think we're buying low on Dan Ige and we're buying high on Damon Jackson. The Pat Sabatini win, frankly, I feel like that was a little bit more of an outlier. The Argueta fight was tooth and nail, very, very close. Round 3, he was tired. Like he dug deep. He's a consummate veteran and professional, but he's tired in that fight, man. Like, and you look at like the stats in that, and it's nothing very impressive. Ige's insanely durable. He's going the full 15 against some of the best in the division, and I think if this fight stays on the feet, it's not even remotely competitive. Like, Ige has went toe-to-toe with some of the better guys in the division on the feet, and he's at least competitive out there. Jackson's got to get this fight to the ground early and often, and he can get the fight to the ground and control from those positions. Can he do it for 15? And whenever they're on the feet, I expect Ige to be pressuring forward and landing big shots. Not sure I can say the same for Jackson. So, yeah, I think it's a good spot for Dan Ige to have a rebound here. He's, lost 4 of his last 5 fights, but he's fighting some of the best guys in the world. And let's face it, Dan Ige, if he was fighting the guys that Jackson was fighting, he would have been on a big winning streak right now as well. So, yeah, Ige.
Evan Tucker is talented, right? He smoked him in 22 seconds, and then they just threw him back to the wolves. Like, what could you do?
Yep. Well, I feel like he gets back on track this weekend. All right, we got Puna Soriano taking on Roman Kopylov, minus 155. Soriano plus 135. Kopylov, what's your take here?
Yeah, probably the hardest fight I think on the card to get a good read because both guys seem to have at least some skill, some potential, and then don't quite live up to it. Roman Kopylov, when he was in on the Russian regional scene, damn dude, this guy could definitely fight. Good size, good length, good boxing, good kicking techniques, and very aggressive. Right, goes out and generally drags his opponents into later waters and puts them away. A guy that's known for his volume, a guy that's known for his cardio. Comes to the UFC and you haven't really been able to see that. One fight in 2019 against Carl Roberson. He looks awful. Roberson takes him down, dominates him on the ground. He gassed out. He actually lost the striking exchanges too. It's a terrible performance. He takes 2 years off and he comes back against Albert Duraev. He looked a lot better, His cardio looked better. His strength looked a little bit better. His takedown defense looked a little bit better, but not good enough. Duraev mostly just smothered him up in that fight, took him down twice. He landed some damaging blows on Duraev. But just again, his get-up game's just too weak. His takedown defense is too weak. At this point, he's pretty much a write-off. He's never going to be a top 10 guy. He's never going to be a title challenger. He just can't wrestle. He can't grapple. His striking, still not even all that good. But one has to just think back to what he was capable of and consider that he's only 30 years old, 31 years old. Like maybe he could get back on track in some way. And then that last fight with Alicio Di Chirico, I thought he did. Like he comes in as the underdog in that spot. Di Chirico's not great by no means, but is a serviceable veteran of the division. And he did put a beating on him. In the first round, he's landing a lot more stinging blows. Very subtle with the leg kicks as well. You see Di Chirico noticeably start to step off on that lead leg. It starts to redden up right around the calf, but they're just like small little touch, go type techniques. And then he just vamps it up, right? Alicio Di Chirico don't want to strike no more, so he's shooting takedowns. Takedown defense looked better. His cardio looked better. Physically, he looked better, and then he just puts a mauling on him like a minute into the third round and puts him away. So that's a solid win, and that's solid by his standard because he's talented, and he just hasn't been showing you nothing in the UFC. That win over Di Chirico looked a lot better. So to me, if he's going to go out there and fight to the best of his abilities, he could be live here. Soriano, meanwhile, just seems like volume kind of escapes him. If he had a better wrestling game, I think I'd be more inclined to go with him. What stumps me is that I thought he was a wrestler, right? He was again, one of these Hawaiian state champ kind of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Took down Jamie Pickett 4 times on the Contender Series. Gassed out in that fight. Didn't look all that good, but got 4 takedowns. His debut against Oscar Pichota, he got a takedown and he knocked him out in 2 minutes. He's shown zero wrestling since then. Against Dusko, he didn't need to. Dusko just kept running right into the counter shot every time. But against Brandon Allen, you're getting soundly outstruck on the feet, and he attempted 0 takedown against Brandon Allen. Did not want to go to the ground with him. Nick Maximov, a junior college wrestler, took him down 11 times and absolutely dominated him in the wrestling exchanges. And then his last fight against Dulce Lungbula, judo black belt, took him down twice on 2 attempts. So I don't think his wrestling is really all that good. And the fact that he never shot 1 attempt against Brandon Allen shows that maybe he's even reluctant to go to it. What he does have is just a big left hand. He's got big power in his hands, and he looks to set up. Doesn't set it up. He's waiting for that one and done shot. He might jab left hand. He might throw a 1-2 just to try to feel out and then try to land the big power shot. But there's nothing beyond that. I don't see the punching combinations out of him. We know he's got big power. Cardio doesn't seem great. The volume doesn't seem great. If he's not obviously going to wrestle against Kopylov, then he's going to create problems for himself. So I do see a world where Kopylov can just keep the foot on the gas, land those leg kicks, take the wrestling away from him by compromising the lead leg, and then just, again, working with the jab, working with the right hand, working with the combinations, hit him to the body, and just slowly go ahead on the scorecards and then pull away. So, again, looking at this line, it's close, it's competitive, but underdogs are going to come through, and I honestly do feel like Roman Kopylov is the first interesting underdog in the order that we're talking about them. First interesting underdog. So I think I'm going to take a little action here on Roman Kopylov, plus 135.
I think the reason why Soriano doesn't wrestle in a lot of these spots, Cody, is that he's worried about gassing. And that is my biggest problem with him. And that's what I see kind of in line with you is I don't know if I'm going to bet it. I think the line's probably relatively close to accurate. At best, maybe it's 50-50, but I'm not too confident. I could definitely see Soriano coming out, putting on a good performance, landing massive shots, and maybe even getting him out of there. But Kopylov hasn't been knocked out in his career, which is, if we have to go a full 15, Kopylov seems very, very live. Curious, actually, now that you actually mention it, what is him by decision? That's pretty, I see a plus 430 out on the market right now. That's not a horrible look. We'll see weigh-ins and all of that stuff as we go along. Yeah, I mean, I've been a guy who had backed Soriano in a whole bunch of spots, and frankly, like, I don't like round 3 against Brendan Allen. Like, he's still there. He's still present in the fight. He's obviously very tough. He's durable, but he's like, the body language is just horrible. He doesn't have the same sting on his shots after about 7.5 minutes. Sometimes he tries to front run, and he had some success earlier on with knocking guys out in the first round by front running. But if you get through the first 7.5 minutes or so with him, it's like he seems to fall off of a cliff. And yeah, I think that's why he doesn't wrestle. He may actually, I mean, he was just outmatched by Maximov. That wasn't really particularly competitive. He spent most of his time, defending takedowns. But yeah, I think the reason he doesn't wrestle is because he knows that he doesn't have 15 minutes of gas to implement that type of game plan. If he was able to do that, if he's able to do that in this spot, because like that's where you can take advantage of Kopylov, I think he would, he would definitely pay off his price tag of -155. But I don't have faith in it. So considering Kopylov by decision for, a little sprinkle later in the week, nothing added to it yet, but yeah, we're kind of on the same page with Kopylov versus Soriano. Moving on down, we've got Ketlen Vieira taking on Raquel Pennington, -125 Vieira, +105 for Rocky Pennington. What's your take here?
I don't know, man. I don't know. This is a tight spot. It's a tight spot because both of them are capable of one thing and then capable of not showing up whatsoever. And in Ketlen Vieira's case, like, I'm leaning towards her to get the win. She's coming off a pair of 5-round fights. So as long as her cardio is good here in a 3-round fight, I have no reason to believe that she shouldn't be able to land the better shots on Raquel Pennington. But if you just let's talk about her last 3, let's say the Giannis Kunikeya fight where she does absolutely nothing. Giannis Kunikeya just off of her back was just landing short shots. Ketlen Vieira landed a takedown in each round, lied on top of her, proceeded to do nothing, got outstruck 47-7, even though she was on top the entire time, and lost. And people try to debate it like, well, she was on top. She didn't do nothing, right? So she's going to come out and lay an egg for me. I just don't want my money on it, to be frank. The next fight against Miesha Tate, that's a tough one. So Miesha Tate, by the numbers, outstruck her like 122-113, but it's like, yeah, Miesha didn't have any zip on any of her shots. Like, whenever she stepped in, Ketlen just ate everything she threw and then returned fire and was really stinging and was really hurting her. I thought that was a fairly good performance for her. Definitely did win the decision over Miesha Tate, but that was the moment Miesha realized, like, yeah, my days as a competitive 135 are done. And then she attempted to drop down to 125, still hasn't found the success. So take that win over Miesha Tate, which is probably her career best, a little bit of a grain of salt anyways. And then that last fight with Holly Holm, I don't know how she won that fight, Paul. Like, I thought she pretty clearly lost. Most people I had talked to and interacted with thought she had pretty clearly lost, but it goes back to that argument of damage versus control. So Holly Holm is definitely controlling her. She controls her for 10 minutes of the fight, but and outstruck her for the matter, but it's like, how Holly Holm strikes. It's a lot of, touch and go techniques, small little kick here, a little jab here. It's, as Robin Black would have said back in the day, it was just flim-flam stuff. Whereas Ketlen Vieira is landing the better blows, and so she wins the decision. But this has got greasy decision written all over it. I don't know what the judges are going to favor. Are they going to favor damage or control? And 2, what's Ketlen Vieira really going to do in this spot? I think her best path to victory is probably controlling Raquel Pennington up against the cage. But Holly Holm just easily controlled her up against the cage. So is it just going to be a reverse of fortunes? And Raquel, meanwhile, she's just like super all over the place as well. Like, at her best, she's a girl that challenged Amanda Nunes for the world title. Did not do very good, but still had gotten to that elite pinnacle level. Her own fight with Miesha Tate, she dominated her. That was a good fight for her. In recent years, she's on a 4-fight winning streak coming into this spot, but she just doesn't really seem with it for the most part. And that last fight with Aspen Ladd, big on the numbers, but did give up those takedowns early, right? Did get controlled for a lot of the time. So I think this thing's going to play up against the cage for 12 of the 15 minutes and go to decision. I'm not sure who's the stronger in the clinch. Raquel, at her best, is very physical in the clinch, and Ketlen Vieira is just a bigger fighter. So I couldn't tell you. My official pick, not that I've told you anything informative in this breakdown, because I have no idea. I really don't. But the official pick will be Ketlen Vieira. But it's like, there's fighters that you can trust. There's fighters that you have a good idea of what version of them is going to show up. And then you've got this spot here where I couldn't tell you. But I do think it's going to be a clinch warfare up against the cage for the most part. And I think Ketlen Vieira is going to get the better of that. but I could see it going the other way big time. So probably the PRP pick or just pass. If you're not a degenerate, just pass. You don't have to bet this fight. I see a couple people dropping a couple units on it. Maybe you see something better than me. And for the record, they're putting them on Ketlen Vieira. So at least I'm on the right side of it, but I'm not seeing anything that would make me uber confident.
I'm not really any sort of confidence whatsoever on this fight, to be perfectly honest, Cody. I see a lot of the points that you make. I kind of could see a lot of, standing cage control. Neither one of them is like a great wrestler by any stretch of the imagination. And yeah, Vieira I haven't really seen like the finishing ability with her grappling if she does get the fight to the mat. So I'll lean ever so slightly. I think I'll lean ever so slightly to Rocky Pennington. 114 significant strikes put up against Aspen Ladd last time out. That's not so bad. Maybe she could set up her bulldog choke, which she likes to work on when they're hanging out up against the cage like that. I don't know if she's going to be so successful just muscling around. Definitely a fight I'm interested from a live betting perspective, just because if this fight, I feel like right now our biggest question is like who's going to be stronger in that clinch position up against the cage. I don't really have the answer for right now, but within like 2.5 minutes of watching them, I'll have a much better feeling of how this is going to play out. Maybe able to grab something that way. But yeah, for the purpose of the show, I'll pick Pennington, but no way I'm getting money invested in it early. And like the over is like juiced already, like minus 350 plus or minus 400. So it's like, yeah, good luck with that. You're not really getting any sort of meat on the bone. Speaking of no real meat on the bone, we got my boy, cousin Umar. He's a minus 1,000 favorite taking on Raoni Barcelos. Barcelos is plus 170. Your boy, Barcelos, plus 700. I mean, I think Cousin Umar is the future champion of this division. Am I stunned by the minus 1,000 against a consummate professional in Raoni Barcelos? I'm pretty surprised. I added it to a parlay at minus 500. I thought, I don't really know what else I'm going to be able to do with this, so I'll add it to Rebecki and Dan Ige. I really didn't foresee it getting up to minus 1,000 at some books. Like, it's pretty wild, but like fair is fair. The guy's been hit 10 times in 3 UFC fights so far. Obviously, last time out, 74-2 in significant strikes. Kid's a stud. He's training with some of the baddest, most technical dudes on the planet. He carries the Nurmagomedov name. I don't think he's actually like, they all call each other cousins. I don't know the relation, but like he's been in their inner circle for quite a long period of time now. Kid's the truth. Raoni is a very, very stiff test, I would say, but we've seen some issues with Raoni. I think a lot of people are, backing Raoni. The price at this point is like, I'm not going to fault anybody for taking a shot on Barcelos. Don't get me wrong on that front. But like, outside of the last fight against Trevin Jones, which I thought was probably Raoni's most complete performance, against Victor Henry, didn't really pursue the wrestling whatsoever. And then got dominated, frankly. Got walked down and outstruck on the feet. Timur Valiev, kind of let that fight get away from him. Had nothing in the wrestling department there. He hasn't really been taken down, but he hasn't fought somebody who has this pedigree of wrestling either. I think Cousin Umar wins. Shocker. I've already bet him, but yeah, does he win inside the distance? Does he win by decision? I still haven't even made my mind up on that. I've got him in that parlay. It's probably all I'm going to get invested in. I wrote about it recently in one of my tweets. I was like, what proves that this game has gotten harder, the markets have gotten sharper, is like it took until like Khabib's 7th or 8th fight in the UFC where he took on Daryl Horcher, who was coming in on super short notice, for him to eclipse like minus 700. It's like Umar's getting that type of treatment, like pretty much straight out of the gate. And then now he has like a big step up in competition and the books are not backing down. Like Umar's the truth. the price is super, super wide, but frankly, it's like, I don't know, 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, like 2 out of 10 at best for Raoni, I think. I don't think the line's all that far off, to be perfectly honest, Cody. Umar's going to win. He's probably going to make it look easy.
Yeah, maybe. This is another one, like you were saying with the last fight. You'll probably know 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes in what it's going to look like. Because if Umar gets him down, then I think that's the big thing here. But yeah, you can make a solid case for Raoni Barcelos. I'm not just saying this as a Raoni Barcelos nut hugger, but listen, you got cousin Umar who's live and die by the takedown, right? Taking on a guy that hasn't been taken down in 5 years in the UFC, who rocks a 93% takedown defense, who is a 7-time member of the Brazilian national wrestling team. Yeah, like Raoni Barcelos can wrestle. Not only that, he's a BJJ black belt. So because of Umar, again, and I've tried to tape study as much as you can, and it's just the same thing. Only gets the takedown, sure, but he doesn't look super comfortable on the feet. Like his distance of range in terms of landing his strikes, not great. He's waiting for that opening, duck under. Duck under, once he gets a hold of you, takes you to the ground. And the guys he's been taking down, Sergey Morozov, solid enough wrestler. I wouldn't say great wrestler, but solid. Takes him down 5 times. But Morozov's able to get back up, right? I mean, he only gets 3 minutes of control time over Sergey Morozov, despite the 5 takedowns. Does choke him out in the second round. Don't get me wrong, kid's an absolute animal. You know, Morozov's at least able to get back up. So he's not like Khabib, where maybe he just needs the one and then he'll be able to cling on to you and hold you down for the entire time. If Raoni is able to continuously make him work and get back up, then at least it leaves it subjective to the judges. Well, Raoni got back up, land some shots. His boxing's much better. Not only that, he's got a beautiful lead uppercut right through the middle, right? Or sorry, a rear uppercut that's going to be there waiting for that takedown. So I think it comes down to the wrestling. If Umar gets the takedowns the way he always gets takedowns, then he's going to probably just hold them down, go through rounds, win the decision. But Raoni Barcelos presents just way more problems than anybody else he's fought to this point. And when you look at Nate Maness's last time out, 72-2. Nate Maness is fighting at 125 pounds right now, right? And a guy that's not even top 15 of the division. He's a tough old Kentucky boy who's down to fight absolutely anybody. Guys got massive cojones on him, but for the most part, like kind of limited in his opposition. I would say with Raoni Barcelos, where does he lose? Where does he blow the fight, make that mistake? It's not grappling. It's the striking department. It's himself letting himself fall behind on the numbers. When you look at the Victor Henry fight, not that there's anything he really could have done to keep up with that absurdity, but he gets outlanded 134 to 181. Huge numbers. Umar's not going to land those kind of numbers. He needs the wrestling. All I'm saying is if the wrestling doesn't work, if it's not on the table, what's the plan B for him? That he's going to strike? Is he going to beat Raoni Barcelos in a 15-minute striking battle? Is he going to do just enough striking and mix in the takedowns? Like, I don't know. As I'm thinking about hitting Raoni Barcelos on a little small play, you know, maybe it's the PRP play. Maybe it's that the line is just way off. Maybe it's that I love me some Raoni Barcelos, always have. I thought he was looking a little bit washed, but his last fight with Trevin Jones, he looked good. As I'm right about to do it, it just dawns on me, Paul. It dawns on me right then and there. Nurmagomedov or not, undefeated or not. By the way, Khabib's not even in his corner. Got to count for something, right? All of that stuff aside, I got a guy that was a 7-time member of the Brazilian national team versus a Russian from Dagestan. Paul, he's going to get the takedown. He's going to get the takedown. I can see it happening. And if I bet Raoni, then I'm going to sit there in front of the TV all excited. And you know what's going to happen? Nurmagomedov is going to take him down and ride him like a small pony. And it's just going to be devastating. So I'm jumping on the other side. However, there's no money to be made on the money line. So how do you attack this thing? I honestly think by decision. Umar Nurmagomedov, super talented, don't get me wrong, but he'll have to work a lot harder in this fight. He'll have to be a lot smarter in this fight. I don't think Raoni's going to get submitted. I don't think he's going to get knocked out. Never been knocked out. Been submitted once in his career against Tricky Mark Dickman 8 or 9 years ago. Long time ago. I think he's durable enough that he will survive to the final decision, right? Lose the decision, but survive. So I'm just going to take fight goes the distance by minus 200. The Nurmagomedov by decision.
I see minus 200s on the Nurmagomedov by decision.
Fight the fight goes to decision.
Fight goes to decision is like minus 215. So yeah, if he pulls off a shocker, if it ends up staying on the feet, yeah, that's not a bad look. if you want to go about it. What I actually like on Prize Picks, I took, it's not my favorite play. We'll talk about my favorite play on Prize Picks. It's moved a little bit. I dropped it to the guys in the DOP Racing family, but didn't want to post it on Twitter publicly because I didn't want to mush the line before the show started. But yeah, I've got Umar over 2.5 takedowns. I like it, don't love it. I just think, I think it's going to be, I think this fight does go 15 minutes, and I think Umar very likely gets takedowns in every single round, whether that's 3 or 5 or Raoni's able to get up multiple times and we get to like 7 or 8. I don't know, but 2.5 seems like a pretty reasonable way to clear it. That's really all I have to say about this. I already teased the next one for the Prize Picks purposes. We got Abdul, Razak, Alhassan taking on Claudio, Ribeiro. -110 on either side. Close fight. A fight that, you'll see on the board there. Fight time is set to 5 minutes. When I dropped it in the DOP Racing family group chat, it was 45.5 significant strikes for Abdul Razak Alhassan. The guy's cleared that 2 of 10 times in the UFC. This fight is lined to get finished in the first round. Like, it's like -250 or something to the under 1.5 rounds. 40.5 is still too high. It pays, I suppose, to be in the DOP Racing family because the boys in there, I dropped it at 45.5. It's like Abdul Razak Alhassan, at the best of times, he doesn't land lots of significant strikes. He's cleared it, twice. And last time out was one of the times that he cleared it. He cleared it by literally 1 strike in a 3-round fight. So if this fight finishes inside the distance as it's supposed to, Abdul Razak Alhassan's going way under the 40.5 significant strikes. As for how the fight plays out, I'm not an Abdul Razak Alhassan guy. Guy has absolute power. It looks like Claudio Ribeiro from what we saw in Contender Series. Pretty similar. He went out there, threw 4 significant strikes, folded the guy he was taking on, and that was all she wrote. I've seen some people talk about how Abdul Razak Alhassan's going to be able to lean on, he's got a judo background. He's going to be able to lean on the takedown a little bit. He was able to take down Joaquin Buckley, 3 times last time out, but Buckley took him down 5 times. So it's like, that was just a strange fight all the way around. I'll pick Ribeiro because I just hate Razak Alhassan's cardio. You get outside of 5 minutes, this guy falls off an absolute cliff. So I'll lean towards the newcomer. But yeah, the way I'm getting invested in this fight was on Prize Picks with the under 40.5 significant strikes. I think somebody gets finished inside the distance. And if this gets finished in the first round or the first 7.5 minutes, I really struggle to see how I keep saying his full name, Alhassan, gets over 40.5 significant strikes. Like, I would be pretty stunned if this fight gets finished in the first 5 minutes. It's like there's no way he's getting over 40.5 significant strikes. So Ribeiro will be my ever so slight lean from that perspective, but I like it a lot better on Prize Picks this week. What about you?
Yeah, there's certain guys like Jim Miller. You just always say their whole name. You don't call him Jim. You don't call him Miller. He's just Jim Miller. But in this case, it's a 3-worded name. So Abdul Razak Alhassan. I find myself doing the same thing all the time. Definitely a mouthful. You know what? I think I'm actually going to edge him ever so slightly in a fight that you probably don't want much exposure on. But hear me out on this. So when you look at Claudio Ribeiro on the regional scene, there is not really a whole lot to see. I don't think he's all that good. He wins a whole lot of fights in the first round. But keep in mind, 9-7 opponent, 2-0 opponent, 8-6 opponent. Then he runs into this Kelly's Albuquerque, right? That's his fight right before the Contender Series. It's a 5-round fight versus an opponent that was 24-20. Very experienced, 24-20, but super undersized. And like, come on, he's got 20 pro losses. Like, he's not exactly a world beater by any stretch. And if that's a 3-round fight, Kelly's Albuquerque wins. Like, he backs him up the entire time. When you see his Claudio Ribeiro just backs himself up straight to the cage. Hands low, backs himself straight line up against the cage, 10, 15 minutes of the fight. And even though his takedown defense is decent against a much smaller man, lands a bunch of these little Travis Brown-style elbows, he's got no ability to get his back up against the cage. He's got no sense of urgency. He does get taken down by the smaller guy. He's losing the fight. And then in the 4th round, they're both completely gassed, but he wins. And in the 5th round, this Kelly's Albuquerque guy is just way too tired to go on. He lies on the ground. He stares at the ref. The ref says stand up. Doesn't give them the no moss, but the ref just calls it off. Again, no way he looks good in this fight. No way this is the guy that's going to jump into the UFC and make any type of splash. And then all the other wins, they're all first-round finishes against low-level guys. So how's he going to do in the Contender Series? Well, he kills the guy. He absolutely killed Ivan Venezuela, Mexican fighter, destroyed him. But again, how good was Ivan Venezuela? Because it was one leg kick, turned the guy out in like a 360, and then he smashed. Dude's head was way up in the air, did a 360, and got smashed. It was a low-level fight. But here's what's more concerning to me, Paul. Highlight reel KO, that's all good. Don't see his cardio. Don't see his ground game. Don't see his ability to get his back up against the cage. You just see a super cool looking KO because it was a super cool looking KO and a nasty KO at that. But how much real substance was there behind that? But here's what's more concerning to me. He weighs in for this fight against Ivan at 181.5 pounds for a middleweight bout.
That's a good point.
He came in at 181.5. Why? What would be the reasoning for that? Well, either he has no idea how to cut weight and somehow cut 5 pounds too much, or he's not that big of a guy. He's not that strong of a guy. And there's one thing about Abdul Razak Alhassan. He's like really strong. He's stout. He's muscular. He's got big old legs on him. They call him Judo Thunder. He's got the black belt. He's got big power, the kind of power that if you see how Kelly's Albuquerque's landing on this guy, you let Alhassan land on you like that. Now, it's going to be a short night. If you let Alhassan control you against the cage and get takedowns, it's not going to be good for you. I just don't think that there's enough real substance from him. I know you said that the line is definitely towards under 5 minutes, but again, I'm not totally sold with that. He smokes guys in 5 minutes that are low level. Alhassan, meanwhile, you mentioned earlier, and I'm not a big fan of his. I am not a big fan of his. But you said earlier the whole, like, buy low, sell high. I kind of feel like that's Alhassan's case. Keep in mind he's got wins over Sabah Hamasi twice, who's actually a good fighter. A split decision, Umar Akhmedov, who just fought for $1 million. A 43-second knockout win over Nico Price. Very credible. But the losses are all legit, man. Munir Lazez outworks him. Tough guy. Chaos Williams, guy that had huge power, lands on him. Bad luck. Jacob Malkoun took him down 8 times. Jacob Malkoun takes down everybody 8 times, 9 times, 10 times. That guy's a freak, man. I don't know how he just does it to everybody. And then knocks out Alicio Di Chirico in 17 seconds. Solid victory. And it was a good fight with Joaquin Buckley. He showed offensive wrestling. He showed that he could fight 15 minutes. He showed that he could land a little bit. His leg kicks looked good. He seemed a little more dialed in. 37 years old. Never really going to get over that hump, I don't think. But I think people are buying a little too much into the Brazilian. So I'll go Alhassan in a fight, again, that could go either way and could be very sloppy and very greasy. And you'll regret betting it. But got to make a play. And don't got to make a play. For this show, got to make a pick. Got to make a play. And I'm going to go with Alhassan.
Yeah, I was saying that the under 2.5 round or under 1.5 rounds in this fight is like minus 225.
I take the over 1.5 rounds too. That's what I'm going to take here. Over 1.5 rounds.
I hope you're wrong, because then my prize picks total is we could still win. We could still win, but it becomes a little bit dicier the longer this fight goes.
This thing could also last 10 seconds.
He's a super low volume guy in general, right? Like even fights that he goes to decision, he barely clears that number. I liked the 45.5. They've adjusted 40.5. Still like it, but not as much as I liked it. When I dropped it into the DOP Racing family chat. All right, we got to move on down. We've got Mateus Rebecki taking on Nick Fiore. Minus 800 Rebecki, plus 545 for Fiore. Fiore seems to be, he's going to be longer. He seems to be a bit of a jiu-jitsu guy. I watched some of his fights. He fought that guy like Jay Ellis, who you've like seen.
Oh yeah.
Absolute can that like a lot. He's fought a lot of guys. Guys has over 100 fights, and Fiore fought him twice for reasons unknown. He finished him by rear naked choke the first time, by KO/TKO the second time. Jay Ellis what's his current record now? He's 16-106. Why do people continue? Why does a guy like that continue to fight? I'll never understand. He must just love it. Yeah, the guy hasn't won a fight I mean,
he's fought something like 24.
This guy still
UFC
just fights
veterans.
so much.
Fought Colby Covington. He's fought like a ton of good guys.
Yeah, he is the can that everyone crushes on their way to the show, basically. So he's fought basically this Fiore guy has fought absolutely nobody. Rebecki we saw in Contender Series, and I mean, just aggressively pursuing those takedowns. This guy's strong as an ox. He's only 5'7", but like he is built. He's a little, he's a little tank. I think -800 for a guy making his UFC debut is always super, super wide. But like everything I see from this guy, it's like I think this guy's gonna be around for a while. He looks like a problem in the making. I took the over 2 takedowns. Just because of the fact that, like, I took the over 2 takedowns on Prize Picks, mixed it in with the Alhassan a little bit. Just because Fiore seems to have, like, a jiu-jitsu background. Maybe he can just, like, survive down there. Or maybe, I struggle to see him actually really getting back up. 2 may actually be a very, very sharp number. I scattershotted, basically, on Prize Picks with the Alhassan, Rebecki, Nurmagomedov, Nascimento takedowns, and Eubanks takedowns, all to the over. I think those are all pretty decent lines. I think the Alhassan's significant strikes was way too high. So I mixed and matched them to have a few different angles on it. But I don't know. Rebecki looks like an absolute powerhouse. He should absolutely roll here. He's taking on a guy who seems to be his best part of his game is grappling. It's like Rebecki went out there against Lidio and just like eats a massive head kick to start that fight. Doesn't really faze him at all. You know, maybe that means that his like striking defense is a little bit of question moving forward, but like I don't think that's going to cause a problem in this fight in particular. The guy just charges forward, takes him down at will, smashes him, like basically like half suplexes him. This guy's a unit, so that's why like he's on the parlay with Umar and Dan Ige. I was just trying to beat some of the steam during this extended layoff. He should absolutely cruise here. Does that mean he's going to be a champion in the future? I don't know. We need to see a lot more from him. You need to see more wrinkles to his game and stuff, but he has the skills to absolutely make this fight look very, very easy. So not going to get too cute with this. Rebecki is obviously the pick. What about you?
Rebecki's either going to smash him and look great, or he's going to get Bartosz Fabinski, man. Like, he's got to watch his P's and Q's on the ground because Nick Fiore is a very good grappler. He's actually a BJJ black belt at a Renzo Gracie affiliate gym in New Hampshire, and all of his wins, for the most part, are by submission. He's not done anything as a pro, but nicely enough, as an amateur, his last 2 wins, Ali Zebian, who's 9-2 as a pro right now, and Nathan Garib, who's the current CES champion. So he subbed both of those guys as an amateur. He's good. Thing is that he's Tyson Chartier trained, Tyson Chartier managed, Tyson Chartier coached. Tyson Chartier's got all of the connections down in the Southeast region. So yeah, he's not going to have to overextend himself. Now he fights Jay Ellis in his pro debut. All right, it's your pro debut. You fought a 100-fight veteran. That's something, but it's Jay Ellis. He chokes him out. He fights Jay Ellis in his second pro fight. Jay Ellis lost 7 fights in between those 2 fights, and Fiore was fighting him back to back. But anyways, the only reason he fought him is the original guy pulled out. Whoever it was, Shaquan Moore. Shaquan Moore gets hurt, so Jay Ellis is like, let's just do it again, and he beats him. And then 3-9, 8-4, 15-13, 5-19. But he subs them all really quickly in the first round. So, again, he's one of these guys that you don't actually know how good he could be. And for the record, like, how does he get these fights to the ground? His timing on his wrestling is very, very good. He's got a good duck under. He's very fast. And as soon as he gets the fight to the ground, it just looks very good. I will admit, Jay Ellis even got up one time on him. So, like, that's not going to, cut it the longer you go. But, again, I think he's just racking up cage time, racking up experience, trying to make the best go of it. This only really notable win on his record is this Andre Borges, who he subbed 1 minute and 31 seconds. If you check that guy out, he's actually pretty good. So, one of these tough Brazilian type opponents. I think this kid could be okay, but he's got a long ways to go. And similar to a Randy Costa, when Randy Costa jumped into the UFC, He's coming off no wins on the regional scene, and now you're expected to cut it in the UFC. And you might, and you can win fights, but you're learning on the job, and it's very, very tough. And with Rebecki, it's a tough guy to learn with because you mentioned he was a fire hydrant. That's exactly it, dude. This guy's a little tiny Greek pillar of a man, short, stout, 5'7", don't matter. He was giving up like 10 inches in the reach department in that last fight against Rodrigo Libio. As you mentioned, got kicked right in the face. Didn't seem to phase him all that much, and then dumps him. Libio did get back up. As soon as he gets back up, he goes for a ride and goes back down. Like, it seems like Rebecki's one of these guys that's going to be very strong, very physical, and he'll be able to just smash over and repeat. But yeah, again, this is another guy that's not one-dimensional in the slightest bit. You have one guy that's fighting guys that are 3-9 and 16 and 100. Okay, consider this for Rebecki. Second pro fight, guy was 10-7, pretty decent. Only lost, dude was 4-0 at the time. But more impressively, he's got a win over Marian Zlokowski. Okay, Marian Zlokowski is the current KSW 155-pound champ. He's a very good martial artist. 2 fights later, he beats Dagir Imavov. Yet Dagir Imavov, that's Nassourdine Imavov's older brother, right? So then he beats Nurmagomedov, not the Bellator one, but all the same, 12-2, pretty beastly. Beats a 30-12 opponent. Beats an 11-1 opponent. That one took 48 seconds. Smashes a guy in 15 seconds who was 10-4. Jumps onto the contender series against Rodrigo Libio, who's 12-2 and smashes him. He's battle tested already. He's not learning on the job. He's not figuring out, oh man, this guy, got me in a bad spot. What do I do? It's like, ooh, he's fought really good guys and looks to be quite good. And the fact is, he's got no neck on him. So what are you going to grab a hold of to choke Paul?
See?
I don't know.
Nothing.
But yeah, if he gets these takedowns, it's just going to be rinse and repeat. So I wouldn't write off Fiore. Like, he's got a decent triangle choke. He's got good submissions. He is a black belt. He'll be crafty. We don't know what to expect out of him. Like, this is a hell of a debut, kid. Hats off to you, but I got to go with Rebecki.
Yeah, not even just the fact that he has no neck, but like he only has like 66-inch reach. He's got short, stubby arms. Just like good luck trying to find an angle and getting an armbar on this guy. The one last thing I'll say about I was rewatching like a couple times. I actually watched it because I was pretty impressed. Rewatching the Lidio fights, like some of his transitions on the ground, it's like, yeah, this guy's 30 years old, as you said. He's already battle tested. He's already slick. The guy's, so many times now we say like, well, this guy, there used to be like UFC ready. It's just like Rebecki is UFC ready. Like what we used to say was UFC ready 5 years ago when, there was 1 or 2 cards a month and it was just the best of the best. Fiore, from what I see, is like current day. We need a guy to fill in the fights. We'll see where both of their careers go, but like Rebecki does look like the truth. Minus 800 is pretty wide. This is what happens when the lines are out for a month and MMA bettors have nothing better to do. Lines get steamed. And I think there was like one book that like opens up all of the lines. They usually have like pretty significant limits on those openers. Well, this time around, I don't know if it's going to be normal moving forward. They did not have those limits. So like a lot of like sharps absolutely just smashed some early lines. And that's why you see so much crazy line movement this week compared to others. Moving on down, we've got Javid Basharat taking on Mateus Mendonca. Basharat a minus 325 favorite. Mendonca is plus 250. What's your take here, buddy?
I think Javid Basharat is probably play of the week, right? Minus 350. It's a little bit. Yeah, I think at minus 350 that would be considered pricey, but considering that the other big favorites on the card are all minus 700, minus 600, minus 500, they're kind of in that much higher range. I feel like that in that discussion, there's some more value on Javid Basharat. When I look at Mateus Mendonca, not a whole lot I like. Here's another guy that comes up in the Brazilian regional scene, fights a lot of lower level guys that never went on to be heard or seen from again, and smashes them. Yeah, he smashes these guys. That's fair. He runs into Pedro Nobre in his fight before the Contender Series. Now, Nobre is, a good veteran of the Brazilian regional. This will be a good test for him, and it's a good fight. He looks very limited to me. His takedown defense, not very good, okay? He gives up easy little trips over and over again. His striking, a little bit wild. Defense, not all that good. He sticks with it, but I don't think that this is someone that I would consider elite. Now, to his credit, he takes 2 full years off before he comes off against a Gene on the Contender Series. I want to see his takedown defense if it's improved. I want to see his cardio to see if it's improved, because both of those things are big holes in his game. The thing is that he smashes a Gene in like 48 seconds. And that guy should have never been in there in the first place. He looked way out of shape. He eats one shot on the side of the head, and he was all the way out. Again, it's another nasty-looking knockout. It's a highlight reel. Dana's going to sign these guys all day. Dana's going to throw them in the UFC all day. That doesn't mean that they're necessarily prepared. And when you look at the regional show tape on him, he's not all that impressive. Now, most notably, he tires out. He slows down. And I think Javid Basharat's going to give him all types of problems. First of all, Javid Basharat is a much more accomplished wrestler. His entries are very, very good. His timing is very, very good. If he wants to go and take Mendonca down, I think he'll be able exactly to do that. If he chooses not to take Mendonca down, he's going to have to watch for that lead front kick right up the middle. But besides that, Javid's got good volume. He's got excellent cardio. If he loses the first round, I'm hammering that live betting line, because you've seen him struggle sometimes a little bit in the first round, always makes the adjustments, always comes through. Now, this is a kid, 24 years old at the time. He comes over to Las Vegas, and everyone that says that they've trained with him and his brother, stars, right? Aljamain Sterling sparred with them. Damn, this guy's got it. Jake Shield basically quits his job and says, I'm just going to hang out with these guys and train them. They're going to be world champions. What I like about him is you see him on the Contender Series against that Oran Cologne, who was 16-0, and it got political. I don't want to waste anybody's time with the political stuff. It got political, and Javid Basharat was just like, all right, buddy, you pissed me off. He went out there, and he absolutely slaughtered the guy. He kicked the shit out, right? So now you get signed to the UFC. His first fight in the UFC is Trevin Jones. This is a tough debut. Trevin Jones is a guy that has good wins in the UFC, okay? Serviceable, tough, BJJ black belt, heavy hands. Javid Basharat, close competitive fight. He wins all 3 rounds. He outstrikes him in all 3 rounds. He wins the 30-27 decision. Now that last fight with Tony Gravely. So people will remember, oh, well, Tony Gravely won the first round. It's kind of a misconception, right? So Tony Gravely probably did win the first round according to the judges, but it's all because of that headbutt, right? He misses with a knee that looks like it splits open Basharat's head, but it's a headbutt. Keith Peterson notices. He calls a timeout. He brings in the physician to look at it. But for the rest of the round, Basharat's head is bleeding. Now, mind you, at the end of that first round, Basharat ducks under and blasts Tony Gravely to the ground. Tony Gravely, a former, state champion out of West Virginia. Tony Gravely, a former, D1 guy out of Appalachian State. A guy that is an American top team representative. Amazing. Not amazing. Very good wrestler. And Basharat just dumps him to the ground. And then in the second and the third round is an absolute beatdown. He just puts it on him. Gravely's got nothing for him. This kid's still only 27. He's getting better. He's had a great chin. He's got good striking. He's got good wrestling. He's got good cardio. It's only going to get better and better from him. And Mendonca, he's there to get taken advantage of, man. I think he's had a pretty looking record built up on the regional scene and a crazy cool KO on the Contender Series. And now he's just getting thrusted into there versus a guy that's got legitimate wins. Who would you rather fight? Trevin Jones, Tony Gravely, Mateusz Mendonca. He's not even on their level. This is his UFC debut. He's making his UFC debut, and he's taking on Basharat, who they're building up to be a star. And I would normally say something stupid or ignorant like, they're building him up to be a big star because there's a market in Afghanistan. But I don't know that there's a market in Afghanistan for the guy. What I can tell you, actually, you know what? There's a market here. I know a ton of Afghani refugees, and they all support their own. The Canadian fighters that are here, that are from Afghanistan, massive support. They want to support their guys. Basharat could be a big star. And I think he's got the skills and he's got the promise to do it. And I think they're going to give him those right fights. So barring a crazy front kick up the middle by Mendonca, barring, Javid Basharat falls over and blows out his knee or something ridiculous of the nature, I think he wins this fight wherever it takes place. So even though the price is steep at $350, I think he rolls here and I'll be picking him.
I have big I don't know. The kid looked good on Contender Series. It was such a short period of time that who knows. Obviously, as you mentioned, he's been off for 2 years before that. He's still only 23 years old. I don't know. I'm not
fair.
This kid may be super legit, but he is taking on a very, very good. This is one of the better skill for skill fights on the card, which sounds kind of crazy to say, but I think there's really, I think both guys have some decent upside. Not sure I'm going to be getting to Basharat from a betting perspective. If I was going to bet him, I think I'd bet him by decision. I didn't really see any sort of killer instinct outside of the Contender Series fight for him. He's happy to win his decision, which, he gets paid the same amount regardless of how it closes out. But yeah, against Trevin Jones, against Tony Gravely, I just don't really see like a potent finisher in him. I'll pick him for the purposes of this show. We'll see how the rest of the week plays out. If there's, and like how the line moves, how weigh-ins happen, all of those types of things. Maybe I'll get to Basharat by decision, which I see out there for like plus 150 right now. Don't mind that. But yeah, I don't think that this Mendonca kid is, he may lose this fight, but he has some promise in my humble opinion. And if they match him up against somebody who's like, on the lower tier in the UFC right now, I think he absolutely rolls. But yeah, that remains to be seen. Moving on down, we've got Allan Nascimento taking on Carlos Hernandez. Nascimento minus 330. Hernandez plus 250. Your thoughts?
Yeah, unpopular opinion, but I think if there's going to be one of these bigger favorites that shits in the apple pie, I'm leaning towards it being Allan Nascimento. So two things that I've always known, and sometimes I go against myself. Whenever I do go against myself, I end up losing. The rule of thumb, that PRP, that top ticket, who do you trust? You don't put a heavyweight up there, and you don't put a flyweight up there, right? There's too much that can happen, too many variables in flyweight and heavyweight fighting. The heavyweights, they got the big knockout. They could get gassed out. They could get tired. It gets sloppy very fast. You never really know what to expect. In flyweight, again, there's so much going on. There's so much to be judged. The judges have got a lot to take in. There's scrambles. It's a fatiguing pace. And a lot of the times these big underdogs will cash through in flyweight fights. This, to me, I think is another one that has a possibility of happening. I like Allan Nascimento, okay? Let's first and foremost agree on that. But the way he loses is generally these close and competitive decisions, right? His fight on Contender Series against Rolly and Pava once upon a time, he landed good striking in that fight. What's important to note is that he went for 1 for 11 on takedowns against Rolly and Pava. So he landed some good strikes. It was a scrap-type fight. Striking doesn't look all that good. At least he's got a willingness to engage. But his wrestling was like non-existent. His grappling was world-class. He's a training partner of Charles Oliveira. But again, his wrestling just doesn't seem to be there for me. Now, in his last two, it has been there, right? Against Tagir Ulanbekov. Sorry, not his last two. Against Tagir Ulanbekov, he gets taken down 4 times, and he's throwing up lots of submissions off his back. He's continuously fishing for the arm. He's trying to get the neck. He's continuously trying to work. So even though Ulanbekov's on him the entire time, the guy's work rate in jiu-jitsu is fantastic. But keep in mind, he's on his back the entire time, right? Mm-hmm. Career-wise in the UFC, he's got 20% takedown accuracy. So he loses to Tagir Ulanbekov, but he lands 25 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes. It's low output for me. And then his last fight against Jake Hadley, okay? Fight starts. He comes upright. Jake Hadley throws a kick. He catches the kick and falls on top of Hadley. Well, once he's on top, his jiu-jitsu is pretty good, man. So he wins the first round. The second round, it's much of the same. His wrestling's not that good, but he does able to trip him up and get on top. Hadley scrambles a couple times and gets back up. Hadley scrambles instead of just clearing and pushing away, grabs the dude's neck and starts wrenching on it and re-engages him in the grappling. He had chances to back away and strike with him. He chose to grapple him and play into his game. But again, over the course of 15 minutes, he landed 19 significant strikes. So I think his output's just very low and his wrestling's not all that good. The thing with Hernandez is that he's got very good feet. He moves laterally quite well. I know he's not like the best looking prospect going, but just bear with me on this one. His fight with Daniel Baez on the Contender Series, his striking looks really good. That's one of the best fights from that season in the Contender Series. It was a straight up scrap. They threw down on the feet. Hernandez's cardio looked good. His striking looks good. He sets up his punches well. He moves his feet side to side. He does give up 5 takedowns. Of those 5 takedowns, he gives up about a minute 20 of top control. So when he does get taken down, at least in the Baez fight, he scramble, back up right away. Makes his debut against Victor Altamirano. This is a split decision. It was a close decision. I think Hernandez wins the first round pretty clear. The second round is a toss-up. The third round I would have given to Altamirano. It's a good fight. Altamirano does manage to get a takedown, about a minute and 15 seconds of top control. So we've seen Hernandez give up takedowns, and that's going to be his fault in this fight. But he does seem to scramble to get back up. And when he is standing, he throws tons of volume. Good kicks, although I would advise him to kind of beware with getting a kick caught here. So maybe use that boxing technique. But he's a good combination puncher. He's got good cardio. He's good at fighting his way back into certain spots. And I think that he's someone that can fight a good solid 15 minutes. With Nascimento, I like him. Don't get me wrong. But if for whatever reason he goes out there and shoots his mediocre level takedowns and does not get them. I don't think there's a fall back on swang and bang. I don't think it's going to go well for him. He needs those takedowns. And whereas it looks good against Hadley that he's coming off a pretty solid little victory, it wasn't like he had showed me a new wrinkle in his wrestling game. It looked like, he timed it good. He caught a kick. He trips him up. And then after that, he just forces a little bit of grappling on him. I'm going to say live underdog spot here for Hernandez in a fight that could be close. It could be competitive. But for this line, man, like this is a big line for Carlos Hernandez. And then last but not least, because it's like greasy theory more than anything. But if you look at Carlos Hernandez's last 2 fights, Contender Series and UFC debut, they're both split decisions, right? They're close. They're competitive. Could go either way. Kid gives a good account of himself. Split decisions. When you look at Nascimento, all 3 of his career losses, 3 of his last 3 career losses are all by split decision.
Yeah.
All of his losses in his career are by decision, all 5 of them, but the last 3 are by split. So it's a subjective fight. What do you like more? The guy that's throwing up submissions and trying to cling on to him? Or are you looking for the guy that's landing those strikes? Nascimento with those leg locks against Jake Hadley, they look good. Great leg lock attempts, but did anything stick? No. So it's going to be a subjective fight that's close, that's competitive. And for that reason, I think there is value on the underdog. I think he could squeak this one out. I think he can win a decision. So I will take Hernandez as the big underdog play of the card, considering as well as I do, 2023 is going to start off just like 2022 ended. One of these guys is looking to shit in the apple pie. The difference is I got to figure it out a lot better in 2023. So that's the mission. Hopefully this is the one.
I like where your head's at there. I'm not going to argue against you too much when you pick when Cody picks underdogs. They tend to be in pretty good spots. I backed Hernandez against Altamirano. It was like pick him when I got in. And, he did exactly what he had to do in that fight. The big concern for him is, the takedown defense seems to be pretty bad. Like either that Contender Series fight, he got taken down 5 times by Barres, like not really exactly a big-time wrestler. And then Altamirano isn't
insane, though, man.
What's that?
That dude was insane, though, man. That fight was an absolute scrap.
Yeah.
And he hadn't fought in 3 years, Baez. I didn't know he was made that many improvements, but I hear what you're saying. This is going to be live and die by the takedown.
Yeah, I have Allan Nascimento mixed in on those prize picks over 1.5 takedowns. I think he's going to be trying to get it to ground early and often. Wrestling isn't exactly great. I kind of just scattershotted those to get invested into it. But Nascimento at minus 330, yeah, there's really no meat on the bone. This line is definitely, you're buying high on him coming off of a win over Hadley, which was a good win in its own right. But yeah, he is an excellent grappler. If he's able to get it to the mat, he's going to hold position and control you there. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Hernandez is a black belt in BJJ, but I may be wrong on that front. Not that he's going to submit him, but he could stay out of trouble and not get submitted if he does get taken down.
And then they'll work him, yeah.
And then I think he wins, definitely wins. As long as this fight's on the feet, he should have the much better boxing, definitely has the better volume. I like where your head's at there. I may add Carlos Hernandez to my ticket. I think he's a good all-around fighter, which most, a lot of people in the 125-pound division, it's just like they're all, if you can cut down to 125 pounds, you better be good at every aspect of mixed martial arts, because the NFL's not calling, NBA's not calling, no other professional league outside of MMA gives you a platform like this to make money as a tremendous athlete. So that's why, the flyweight division, when you watch it, it's just like all of these guys are incredible. NBA's not calling unless you're Muggsy Bogues. If you're, 5'4", 5'5".
Nate Robinson.
It is short schism, as some people out there would say, but it is what it is. That's just the nature of professional sports. All right, we got Daniel Argueta taking on Nick Aguirre. Argueta minus 600 favorite. Aguirre is plus 425. Argueta is, he was supposed to, or this is like a very, very late notice replacement he's taking on here. He was supposed to take on, what was the guy's name again? Bulgarian, that was a banger fight. I was really looking forward to it. Bulgarian looked good on Contender Series. I'd done tape for this. And Argueta, Yeah, I thought he held his own pretty well against Damon Jackson. A lot of people are, high up on Damon Jackson. It's just like Argueta was right in that fight the entire time. The one thing I will say is that he's very, very thick, but like seemed so outsized against Damon Jackson. And I know that Argueta used to fight at 135 in a lot of his previous fights. Maybe he's just grown out of that division. I'm not entirely sure. He's on the Ultimate Fighter, lost to Ricky Tercios way back when. But this guy's super, super strong. And he's taking on Aguirre, who I watched a few of his fights. Seems to be another BJJ guy. Has some decent setups, but he's fighting low-level guys. I think the big problem for him here is that he's going to really struggle in terms of like the overall power and strength that Argueta brings to the table. And on the feet, while it's not technical, Argueta is going to be landing the much more impactful shots. But minus 600 for a guy who's very, very unproven, untested. It's not going to be getting any of my money. I think Argueta wins, but I'm probably going to just sit this one out. What about you, buddy?
Yeah, actually, there's Nick Fiore and Nick. How do you? I don't know. I think the Anthony Pettis broadcasters were saying Aguirre. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Nick and Nick, are they both nicknamed Slick Nick? It seems like the easy cop out. Oh, the only guy doesn't have a nickname, and one of them's called Slick Nick. Okay, yeah, sounds about right. Yeah, it's the exact same thing. There used to be a time where, like you said, UFC caliber, UFC ready. Back in the day, back 2006, back 2005. When I first jumped into MMA, this is the shit I want. This is what I want to do with my life. Basically, the barometer was you had to beat an ex-UFC guy. So some dude would get cut, didn't matter who it was. Some guy would get cut. UFC veteran, you would beat him on your regionals. That was your ticket to go in. In later years, it started being an LFA title. You win an LFA title, that was your ticket in. Win that regional belt. You'll come over. Now, there's no rhyme or reason. So what happens is guys realize I can fight Jay Ellis twice. I can fight guys with losing records and build up a 6-0 record, 7-0 record, and then just go to the UFC. So why would you take that tough fight on the regional scene, right? But what ends up happening is you get to the UFC. Now it's time to take that tough fight. And you ain't ready for it, man. You're not ready for it because you haven't had to jump up. That's what I'm seeing out of Aguirre. Same thing. As an amateur, kid was pretty good, right? He was 6-0, finished the majority of those in the first round. As a pro, pretty good. Keep in mind, 0-2 Cordy Sheev. Sean Jordan 1-1. Drew Henry. This is your third fight. Don't you want to step it up a little bit? No. Shout out to my boy Tim Lloyd, by the way. 1-1. 0-0. 2-1. It's like, holy crap, man. When are you going to step it up? And so this was interesting to me. I couldn't actually find the fight. I want to. But first career fight. First round finish. First round rear naked choke. First round TKO. First round triangle choke. Minute 9 strikes. First round guillotine choke. That's the Anthony Pettis one. You can watch that on Fight Pass. He's got an excellent duck under to the takedown. Seems like he's fast and athletic. But it's like, what about when someone presents him some resistance? And so I couldn't find the fight. But that fight with Brandon Clausen, it's the first time he's fought a guy with a couple wins under his belt. First guy with an actual record. He's 4-2. And he don't finish him in the first round. He takes him to the second round. So to me, he's finally taken on a little bit better of an opponent. And you're seeing it's not as easy as it normally is. He's had to fight for a little bit. I'd love to find that one. I'm going to try to find that one. I couldn't find it. Daniel Argueta, meanwhile, you're right. He's the LFA 135-pound champion. But if you've seen him, even the Marion Santos fight, he shaves his head. He's got a beautiful, long, luscious mullet. And he shaves it to make weight. He struggles to make 135. So when he fought Damon Jackson in the UFC, 145 because it's short notice, I felt like 145 was the direction he was headed anyways. Speaking of wrestling, he did go to the University of Wisconsin Parkside, wrestled there, I believe it's a D2 program, and was a pretty solid wrestler. In all of his MMA fights, he looks to imply his wrestling. Grind these guys up against the cage, grind them down, wrestle. The Diego Silva fight, it's for the LFA title. Again, you can watch these fight on Fight Pass. He gets the takedowns. He grinds them up against the cage, but he does not look good in the open field. He's not a good striker. He's one of these guys that might be able to get away with striking on the basis of aggression, on the basis of being raw, kind of like a Darren Elkins. If you're coming forward and you're willing to engage, you can rough guys up, but technically not all that good. His leg kicks pretty much naked for the most part. He doesn't really set them up. His head doesn't move too good side to side. His hands low. He's got good cardio. He's fought 5 rounds, but sometimes his body language screams, I need a minute or so to just kind of regather myself, and he'll try to skirt away to the outside. I think he's good. I just don't think he's great. That fight with Damon Jackson was by far the best he's ever looked, and he took the fight on short notice. But it's important to note, here's a guy that's a wrestler that's made his career based on wrestling. He wrestled in university. He comes to MMA. He's wrestling. And then that fight with Damon Jackson, even though it was short notice, and even though technically he's up a weight class. Sorry, what did he get taken down? 5 times, was it? I just want to confirm. No, I guess he only gave up. Okay, sorry, my bad. He gives up the 2 takedowns, and then he can't get back up. 10.5 minutes of control time from Damon Jackson once he gets those 2 takedowns. So just bear with me, because this is potentially your other apple pie shitter. We know the guy can scrap. We know the guy's talented. The one area where he's not all that good is off of his back. He doesn't have a great get-up game. And again, you can go back and watch his LFA fights. The last one, I think, is Diego Silva. He gets a kick caught early in the first round. He falls to his back. He accepts the position. Sure, he tries to isolate an arm here and there. He tries to shift his hips here and there. But for the most part, his get-up game is not that good. Now, luckily for him, next round, he starts standing, and he starts getting the takedowns. He tires at his opponent. My worry here is that we don't know enough about Nick Aguirre that he might be able to get this fight to the ground. If he does get this fight to the ground, his jiu-jitsu looks like it's pretty good. So if he can get a few takedowns, hold him down, scramble, make him work, this line is way off. This line is, the other guy I'd never heard of, he's coming on short notice, and he's fought a bunch of bums. But that's not always the whole story. So whereas I think Rebecki smashes. Rebecki is battle-tested and proven. This is not quite the same, right? I got an opponent here in Daniel Argueta who's actually just 0-1 in the UFC and, technically fighting up a weight class. The last thing, I don't know if this means anything at all. It might not. But, Aguirre's been fighting pro for 1 year. He's not even 2 years as a pro. But look at these weight classes he's fought at. 140, 136, 140, 140, 149, 135, and then his last one's at 145. So I have no. Is he going to be small? Is this a guy that could cut to 135 all the time, but he fights cans, so he's just not cutting at all, or has he got something
skinny
up his sleeve?
He looks
skinny.
And
if that's the case, and he's not winning the wrestling exchanges, he's in trouble.
Argueta's definitely he's built. The guy's jacked.
Yeah.
There's going to be a massive, it's just, sometimes it's just technique. And, his technique, Aguirre doesn't look so bad. I'm with you. I think, minus 600, I would not touch that with a 10-foot pole. That just seems too unproven. If this fight was on LFA, it's not this. It's not this scenario. It's probably more like a minus 300 plus 250 type of fight, if that, maybe even less. So definitely interesting. It's the short notice, I suppose, that is a little bit what is this Aguirre? We don't have very much information on Aguirre whatsoever, or Aguirre, or whatever the heck you want to call him. I'll find out on Saturday when they say it on the broadcast. They tend to get it right. Moving on down, we've got Charles Johnson taking on Jimmy the Brick Flick. Minus 330 Johnson, plus 270 for Flick. Flick coming, Flick had retired, and then he was supposed to fight on this card. Was supposed to take on Ali Abdelaziz. It feels like forever ago because, there haven't been fights for... Supposed to take on, Jeff Molina. Obviously, Molina gets suspended due to Kraus, and being in some way, shape, or form. I don't have all the details, but connected to that. We will find out, obviously, in the future what that connection was all about. And the little thing in the back of my head, Cody, I was saying to myself, I'm like, what is the Brick? Jimmy the Brick Flick coming back to take on Molina. That seems weird. Is he just going to accept a bag or something? But, James Lynch, former co-worker of mine and yours, he did an interview with Flick. Flick's been getting ready since July for his return to the octagon. The one book that opens up all of the lines, they opened it up pretty close to a pick'em, I believe, and they didn't have limits like they usually do. So there's been crazy line movement on this one. There was minus 137 Johnson. There's a bunch of guys who absolutely smashed it. Within half an hour, it was down to 375. It took a journey down to minus 550 Charles Johnson, and that's when I paid attention and I said, Charles Johnson's wrestling isn't all that great. He's taken down 12 times by Makayev. He was taken down last time out against Zalgis in mostly a striking fight, but he was taken down once. He's got a striking advantage here for sure. But if Jimmy Flick is in half decent shape, I scooped up some plus 385 and plus 420. When people asked me why I was doing that, I said I probably would line this based on like Jimmy having time off. I'd probably line this more like minus 300 plus 250. The market seems to have corrected itself. I don't know if there's too much value on Jimmy Flick. Maybe we'll see some more at weigh-ins, but I think this is the guy that could actually, if he sticks to a game plan, high school wrestler, great grappling when he does get it to the mat. I think he could present some real problems for Charles Johnson here. So I got really, really good numbers on Jimmy Flick because of, a massive overreaction in the market. It's starting to correct itself. I still see a plus 300 out there. If you haven't got in and you're actually interested in this fight, I don't think that's a very bad look. I think Johnson, based on like the holes in his wrestling game that we have seen, that presents an opportunity for Flick to pull an upset here. That if this fight just turns into a striking affair, it's not even going to be remotely competitive. But I think Jimmy the Brick's coming out to take him down and work him on the ground. Hopefully, for my bankroll's sake, that's what plays out. But minus 300 plus 250, I think is probably about accurate for how I would have lined the fight. What's your take here?
Yo, tell them the Brick sent you. Yeah, his videos used to do the best, man. When he had sponsors. It's great to see him back fighting, and he can make some great content again. Listen, Jimmy Flick, he's got a submission game. He's got a wild submission game. Most of his career wins, obviously, coming by that form. BJJ black belt, opportunistic guy. And, funny, fan favorite type of guy. But, I never really been too high on Jimmy Flick. I don't really see a whole lot of depth to his game other than his submission game. His wrestling, really not all that good. His striking, not all that good. And his cardio and his chin, really not all that good. Keep in mind, all of his career losses, he's pretty much been chin-checked, right? First career loss to Will Campazano, knocked out 26 seconds into round 2, right? Fight with Tim Sosa, knocked out. Against Levy Moles, minute 27 into round 2. Chris Gutierrez, who's not a big power puncher, knocks him out into round 3. At least he made it to round 3 there. Ray Rodriguez, 15 seconds into round 2. So his chin's not all that good. He actually hasn't given up a whole lot of first-round knockouts, but once his submissions don't stick in the first, he does roll over and die. Now, he's on a good little run here where he's been snagging the submissions and people love cheering for the guy, and it's crazy in a flying triangle here and there, but it doesn't take away from the fact that his striking is not all that good. Now, in order to have great jiu-jitsu, you got to be able to get the fight consistently to the ground. It looked for a minute like maybe his wrestling had made enough improvements. He debuts in the Contender Series against Nate Smith. Now, keep in mind, Jimmy Flick is, I guess he was even money in that fight with Nate Smith. Nate Smith blows his knee out in the first round, still makes it to the third round, survives 6 submission attempts, and finally got stuck on the 7th one. And if you have a computer in front of you, go ahead and click on Nate Smith. Yeah, he lost his next 3 fights in a row after that, right? So Nate Smith's not good. I don't know who needs to hear it, but he's not. But Jimmy submits him, and Jimmy throws up a bunch of submission attempts. So just like that, he's in the UFC. Now, in his debut against Cody Durden, he's losing, Paul. He's losing. His striking looks awful. Durden takes him down. He gets back up. He grabs a hold of him, and he throws up a flying triangle. It was dope. It was dope. And I had picked Jimmy Flick. Because remember, the fight got booked. I picked Durden. It got canceled. They rebooked it. I switched to Flick. Flick subs him. Great moment. But it's like he understood where he was at, and he retires right away. And it's like, well, why'd you retire? It's like, oh, man, I want to spend time with my family, and I need an actual job with actual pension, and I need to get paid money. And now you're sitting on the sidelines, and oh, man, geez, I guess I could make a quick buck fighting again. You're going to jump back in there. And now you're going to take on Jeff Molina. And that one's weird. And I'm not going to throw any greasy fire or greasy gas onto the greasy fire, but for the record, Missouri and Oklahoma border as states. So what's up? They probably know each other. Yeah, I would say Charles Johnson's going to put a straight up beating on him. Now, here's the thing with Charles Johnson. Yeah, takedown defense issues, okay? But keep in mind this. Never been finished in his entire career. Never been submitted in his entire career. First loss, Sean Santella. Sean Santella is a BJJ black belt under Jim Miller. He's an excellent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He has excellent top control, excellent submissions. He takes down and neutralizes Charles Johnson, but he could not submit him. The other loss that he has, the next loss, I guess I should say, was, where was he at? There's another
Brandon
BJJ
Royval.
special. Brandon Royval. So Brandon Royval is dope on the ground. He's got excellent submissions. He's very, very crafty. He's very, very quick. He's able to take Charles Johnson down and win that way. But again, Charles Johnson's takedown defense checks out. And then his last fight against Makayev, yeah, he gets taken down 9 times, 10 times, 11 times. His takedown defense is an issue, but his submission defense is not the issue. So if Flick does manage to take him down, and by the way, Jimmy Flick is not those guys. If he did manage to take him down, I think Charles Johnson's going to be okay. Well, assuming he shaves off that nub at the back of his head of hair, bun.
That's a problem.
Bro, what are you putting that on there for? Are you taking on Jimmy Flick? If he's got anything he can grip, it's going to be dangerous. But assuming he shaves that thing off, I think his submission defense is good enough that he survives the first round. In the second round and the third round, Jimmy Flick's going to be tired. His takedowns are not going to be coming as quickly. He generally gets knocked out in the second round. Charles Johnson's going to find this guy and he's going to open him up. I'm betting Charles Johnson by knockout. I'm betting Charles Johnson round 2 at plus 500. Charles Johnson round 3 at plus 900. He's going to tire him out. And no guy that's ever taken Charles Johnson down has held him down. Guys have taken him down a pile of times. The best aspect of his game is his get-up game. The dude's always getting back up. That's something that Makayev will just chain wrestle over and over and over again. Jimmy Flick not necessarily going to do that. He needs to get him down and submit him right away. Because even Nate Smith survived the first 6 of them, right? If this guy survives a few of them and gets back up, you're getting toasted here. So Charles Johnson, a great athlete, someone who was slow getting into MMA, boxed for a little bit, went to Thailand for a little bit. He's finally putting it all together. And as much as I thought he did rob Zalga Zumagulov his last time out, Zalga's probably stiffs Jimmy Flick in the first 3 minutes. So, I got to go with Charles Johnson. Now, I didn't agree on the line that it was set at. If I was a CLV soft opener, $150 limit kind of guy, I would have hammered it on 9 different accounts.
There was no limits.
That's a great
There was
line.
like basically no limits. That's why it
great.
moved so hard.
Great.
And that's why I jumped in.
I
jumped in on the other side because I'm like, this looks like they're just. Yeah, and the line has landed where I thought was probably fair. I jumped in on the other side. I'm like, I'm just gonna buy these guys hedge because I know that's what they're doing. Like they grab the big side. They're gonna take Johnson and they're gonna make it a risk-free type of situation for themselves. I bought some of their hedge essentially is what happened. I think the line is pretty close to accurate right now. I agree with a whole bunch of your points. But yeah, it went up to plus 420, and, I'm about that life. So I was like, well, I'm going to have to double dip on this. I had a plus 385 and a plus 420. Just because I figured that they were overreacting to get more money back on the Flick side to get it back to normal, which I think it's pretty fair right about now. If this turns into a kickboxing match, like Flick, just throw all my Flick monies away. Like, we don't got a shot. You got to get takedowns. You got to get them early, and you got to be fishing for submissions. At the very least, like, if you're not able to get submissions, you need to be getting a whole bunch of top control and holding it, because when we're on the feet, we're losing this fight. So, yeah, Johnson for you. I'm going to I'll pick Flick. Whatever pick means. I'm already invested in it at a much better price. Finally, we got Sarge Eubanks taking on my girl Cab. Eubanks a minus 230 favorite. Cab can be had for plus 195. You know that, first fight back, first card back. I'm going to have to back my girl Cab. It's a tough matchup. Don't get me wrong. Don't get it twisted. I got like 0.25. What would be 0.25 units for slightly more than 0.5 units for people who speak in that unit type of talk. Not very invested in it, but if the fight stays standing, my girl Catch a Beating is absolutely a dog. She is throwing with ill intent. Obviously, she is insanely durable. The grappling is a big red flag and has always been a problem. She gets taken down. She gets taken down quite easily. It's like if you watch like Jillian Robertson, the takedown that she got, that led to like the end of that fight was very rudimentary. It wasn't anything crazy. Mazzani was able to take her down 4 times. I have Eubanks on my prize picks for over 1.5 takedowns, because it is so easy to take Cachoeira down. But if this fight's on the feet, Cachoeira is completely live in this fight. I think the line is kind of nuts. Like, I would not. It's a dog or pass type of situation. I'm getting invested because I pretty much bet Cachoeira every single time she goes out there, because I know she's going to go out there and fight for my money. I would not suggest whatsoever putting very much stock in a minus 230 Sijara Eubanks, minus 265 and minus 250s in some other spots on the market right now. So it's like the Pat Mayo special here, Cody. It's a big underdog women's fight. Take the dog in this situation. This dog's going to fight for 15 minutes as long as she doesn't get subbed.
Yeah, I think your best bet is to live bet this thing after the first round, because if you lose in the first round, well, no harm done. But Sarge Eubanks wins pretty much most first rounds. Like, if you look at her losses, she wins the first round in the vast majority of them. The Betchkohea fight starts off really good, gasses out, ends up losing it. The Ketlen Vieira fight, more notably the Pani Kianzad fight, Melissa Gatto, same thing. It's like she'll get that early takedown against Pani Kianzad. Round starts, she takes her down. As soon as she's on top, Pani can't do nothing about it. Round ends, it's very easily 1-0 Eubanks. The commentary team's like, listen, Pani knows if she gets taken down, she can't get back up. So she needs to make a concentrated effort to keeping it on her feet. And then Pani's all of a sudden putting a beat on Eubanks. Wrestling's non-existent at that point. Striking, she keeps with it, but not enough. So she loses the Pani Kianzad fight. And then, the Melissa Gatto fight was much of the same. Like, she actually did win the first round. She gets the takedown. She neutralizes her. She's got good top control. The second and the third round, she can't get her wrestling going anymore. And she ends up getting hoofed with the body in the third and then tumbles over. So the problem with Sijara Eubanks is, again, she seems to be a one-round fighter. She's got excellent top control, excellent jiu-jitsu, but about one round to physically make it effective. Priscilla Cachoeira, terrible takedown defense. Yeah, we all know it. But she can fight for 15 minutes. And she fights hard for 15 minutes. And to me, I feel like that's going to be, a big thing here. Not only that, but Priscilla Cachoeira's last fight, she looks career best, against Ariane Lipski, knocks her out in a minute at 135 pounds. Sijara Eubanks, meanwhile, her last fight against Melissa Gatto, she wins the first round, gasses out. We know all the story I just told you, but she missed weight, 127.5. Mm-hmm. If you look at the vast majority of her fights, she misses weight. She struggles to make weight. She got kicked off the Ultimate Fighter for missing weight. She one time shaved her dreadlocks to make weight. She does not cut weight particularly well. Now she's 37 years old. She's going to suddenly make 125 and fight for a hard 15 minutes. Yeah, I'm really not so sure about that. And I hear people keep saying, yeah, but man, what if she does what she did to Elise Reed? Elise Reed fights at 115. She's a strawweight. Eubanks can't make 125. She is a bantamweight. Yeah, that one fight, she looked really good. I think against Cachoeira, if you take her down, which many people have done, Shevchenko needed to dribble her head off the canvas for, a couple rounds. She's durable enough that I think if she gets taken down in the first, she survives it. And if she gets caught in a rear naked choke, well, at least she's going to not fight for your dollar, but she'll eye gouge you. She will eye gouge the dollar to save it, okay? Whatever she needs to do to save your money, she'll at least give you that. And I like her.
I was at 459, and Jillian Robertson recently has been doing like jiu-jitsu tournaments. Like, that's a world class. Like, she's a very, very good jiu-jitsu practitioner. It's like if we got very good. If we got out in one more second, she was trying to gouge her eyes out just to try to get out of that choke. If we got out of that, who knows how that fight plays out? I always back her just because. She's always a big underdog. She fights for your money. She's super aggressive. She hits very, very hard. the grappling isn't great, and we know what we're getting involved in. I only did like a very small pre-game wager because my plan is to try to attack this live. I expect Eubanks to get some takedowns, particularly early in this fight. Maybe one, maybe two. I see a lot of people saying like, oh, Eubanks gasses Cachoeira is gonna knock her out. I'm not so sure. Like, the deeper I think about that, is like Eubanks tires out and then she becomes ineffective. But it's like her durability is held up against some really decent competition outside of the Gatto fight last time out. You know, she went the distance with Ketlen Vieira, Julia Avila, Aspen Ladd. Like, it's not easy to finish Sijara Eubanks whatsoever. So I'm not loving it, particularly because the market right now for it, it's like the books have set it up that like, oh, it's Cachoeira round 3. And it's just like plus 800 for her to win by that. So like, I'd rather just take like the plus 200 money line. And then maybe add more after round 1 if the fight is playing out the way that I think it is, or the way I kind of foresee it. Take like the money line. You may get like a plus 400 if she gets taken down and spends most of the time on her back but survives. So, yeah, Cachoeira for me. Cachoeira for you?
Yeah, honestly, so this goes back to Eubanks versus Pannie Kianzad, is that when they announced the decision and they announced that Pannie had won the fight, Eubanks looks over like just astonished that she got outstruck 92-52 and had lost this fight. How did I lose this fight? Like, she's complacent at times and she sits there and gets hit. So, yeah, I would say that it's going to come down to the subjective nature of the judges. The judges might say, well, Eubanks got some takedowns and held her up against the cage, but it's going to be Priscilla Cachoeira coming forward and mixing it up the way she does. And if you look at the Gina Mazzani fight, controlled easily in the first round, taken down at will in the first round. And then if anything, she just is tenacious, stays on it, batters her and finishes her. Well, bum opponent, you'll say. Fair enough. The Ji Yeon Kim fight. Yeah, I disagree that she actually won that fight. But do you know what won her that fight? When there was a minute left in the fight, close, competitive fight, and she just starts smashing Ji Yeon Kim with elbows. Oh, my God. She just came forward, reckless abandon. That stole the round back. She fought and dug deep in the last minute and then knocks out Lipski her last time out. Like, the power is there, but people don't need to understand. All they need to understand is Paul's relationship with Cachoeira as being this. He never bet her against Valentina Shevchenko because he's not brain dead. He had Molly McCann over her. And in the third round, remember, Molly McCann's eyes all the way shut, and Cachoeira is still storming forward. Doctor almost stopped that fight.
My girl's built for 5-round fights.
Right. This is the best, though.
Meatball's getting dusted in the 4th round if we get out of that round.
It doesn't go to a 4th round. They look at her and they say, do you see how many fingers I'm holding, mate? And she's like, nah, mate. And it's like, do you see how many pints I'm holding? And she's like, oh, yeah, 3. Because she's got a better sense of that. But
the Carolina fight was bad. And she put herself in some bad situations. She got, she was in some like tight submission situations against someone who's not exactly like a world-class grappler. Not a great spot, but like that's 2019. I think she's made a lot of improvements she's won 4 of her last 5 fights, Cody, and she's an underdog every single time.
Well, see, that's what I was going to say is that, she don't know you nothing. I would ride with her the same way. You cashed her against Shayna Dobson plus 175. You cashed her versus Gina Mazzani at plus 190. You cashed her versus Ji Yeon Kim at plus 135. And you cashed her against Ariana Lipski at plus 135. She's had 4 wins in the UFC. All 4 times they've given you underdog money. More often than not, you've actually hit the KO prop on it because, she's going to go for it. So she's someone that's been in these spots and thrives and comes through and keeps fighting. And this is how amazing this girl's career has been. She's 34 years old, okay? Her wins are Shayna Dobson, Gina Mazzani, Jun Yun Kim, and Ariane Lipski. So she has no notable wins.
No.
She's 34, and I think she's 4-4 in the UFC, okay? And yet she's cashed 3 performance bonuses in her career. Right, she had a KO of the night against Shayna Dobson. She had a fight of the night against Ji Yeon Kim. Her disclosed pay from her last fight with Ariana Lipski is 40-40, and she won. Okay, she's making almost $100,000 a fight, Paul. Oh my God! For someone who just comes forward and just bombs on you, there is a market for entertainment. This girl has coined the market. I have never bet on her. She's probably going to lose as a result of me betting her for the first time, but you know what? This is a good spot for her, so I'm not going to deny that. What I will say is for these shows, we got to give you the pre-fight flop. Pre-fight flop, I'm going to take Priscilla Cachoeira. But the smart play is betted after the first round. This is an excellent live betting situation.
And that's why I didn't get too invested in it beforehand, because I expect round 1 to be rough. And she could get finished in round 1. Like, I know the limitations that she has in her game. But if we get through 5 minutes, game on, Cody. Game on. Game on. Yeah, this week what I've got Ige, Umar, Rebecki parlay plus 167. That's to win 1 unit. Flick money line. I've got 0.5 units total at plus 385 and plus 420. I think that's to win like what would be 2 units. And then Cachoeira 0.25 units to win just slightly over 0.5. For people who do that, that's how I kind of I generally bet everything pretty much straight. Like, it's always to win the same amount of money. So when I bet underdogs, I'm betting a little bit less on it. If you see me betting like big favorites, I mean, I have a hefty investment into that number. So yeah, the card's not completely done yet, obviously. There's a few spots I'm interested in. Going to watch weigh-ins. Going to kind of, see more props and that type of stuff that open up over the course of the week. But that's what I'm on right now. Hit him with the PRP, Cody.
Hit him with the PRP. We're going to go Sean Strickland, even money. Dan Ige, almost even money, if you can believe that. God, that's going to be value, I think. Anyways, Roman Kopylov is going to be dog number 1. Ketlen Vieira, there's a lot of near even money plays, eh? We're going to go with Umar Nurmagomedov. Fight goes the distance is your better play there. I'm going to take Abdul, Razak, Alhassan, another even money play. Rebecki, Basharat, I really like him this week. Carlos Hernandez is going to be my dog number 2. And then Charles Johnson and Priscilla Cachoeira, dog number 3. So 12 fights, 3 underdogs. The underdogs actually, Priscilla Cachoeira plus 200, as well as, Carlos Hernandez at plus 280. Like, if we can get even just one of those underdogs, the value is certainly there. In terms of the big favorites, I agree with most of them. Just, I know one of them's going to blow it. Hopefully I'm not overexposed there. I would agree with Paul's assessment. I think the best value is probably Dan Ige, so he's going to be used to juice up a bunch of tickets. Also playing Umar Nurmagomedov, just he's not adding enough for me, and I think Raoni's pretty dangerous. But yeah, Mateus, Rebecki, Javid, Basharat for myself personally, and then I'm gonna have that Charles Johnson. No, Paul doesn't agree with that, but between those 3-4 plays, you could put Sean Strickland in there if you want to hedge it at the end of the night. But yeah, I think in 2023 it's like less is more, right? You don't have to play every single fight. Of course, the PRP is going to include every single fight, but maybe more focus on that top line. Who are your 2 best plays? Who are your maybe 3 best plays? Keep it to that. And when you get those cards where you're like, I love 6 of these guys, then you're going to hit the bigger parlays, right? But on these greasier cards, first one back, everyone's antsy. Everyone are so antsy, they're just like betting LFA hard, right? And it's like, man, who do you like on this one? It's like, bro, I can tell you, the one guy's 2-0 and the other guy's 2-1. You do not want to bet this. And then sure enough, the first 2 fights on the card last week or the last LFA, they're both like plus 230 underdogs, and they both cash, right? No rhyme or reason. Greasy regionals. Things are going to happen. Unless you physically live there and know these guys, maybe stay away. The worst UFC card is the best PFL card. It's the best, LFA card. Just because you think it's that much better doesn't mean you got to bet all these spots, right?
No.
Maybe just there's going to be 52 cards this year, give or take. 50 maybe.
If you count like count contender series, you're definitely around 50 or even
and Bellator more. And PFL and Eagle FC I hear is banned from the United States, but stuff's gonna pop up and you're gonna have over 100 fights to bet on, 100 cards to bet on. Sorry, so yeah, there's gonna be lots of opportunities. For this card itself, we just talked about the 3 or 4 best plays that we like. Try to pair to that. But of course, I've been trying to hit the PRPs. This is what we do, right? So yeah. Hope for the best this opening week. And I don't think it's too bad of an offering. We're just going to need the bounces that we need to go our way.
Indeed, sir. All right, good talking to you again, buddy. I missed it.
Yeah, man. It feels like I don't know. I would say vacation, but the 3 weeks was good. Just do something different, right? And find
Yep.
something else to do. Unfortunately, like starts off mad Twitter drama, which we're not going to talk about. But man, Phil Baroni killed somebody. Like, no. My favorite fighter of all time is the New York Badass Phil
Dana
Baroni,
White's
so.
getting caught slapping his wife while he's in
Yeah,
Cabo.
Phil Baroni killed somebody.
I mean,
I'm never going to see him again.
The
If
dark
Dana never saw
side
Dana
of
again,
you take fights away from people. You take fights away from these heathens, and this is what happens. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's obviously a dark side to all of it. I mean, yeah, the fights in Russia and stuff. There's always weird stuff going on with that. It's a crazy sport that we decide to support here with some real sketchy characters. But I wouldn't have it any other way. And until further notice, I feel like we're two of the good guys still. So not that actually, I hate saying the people who always have to constantly tell you that they're the good guys tend to be hiding something. So you know what? I'm not even retract that last statement. We stick to ourselves. We do our thing, and I wouldn't have it any other way, buddy. It's been like 10 years that we've kind of been, since we were in school, and I think we started doing some podcasts that nobody had ever actually seen. And we've had some good years and bad years. Last year was not a great one, but hoping onwards and upwards for 2023. I have high hopes.
Yeah, I think this is our 9th year. This is our 9th year officially, 2023. So you and I, we went to college and we did. Roger Lajoie would be like, talk hockey or whatever. He'd let us talk MMA. He's like, I know you guys don't want to talk about hockey, so go do an MMA podcast. And like we would get those reps in and talk MMA for a long time. But the first ever show that me, you, and Kent Carter did was Fight Night 39, Nogueira versus Roy Nelson, right?
Yeah.
2014, April 2014. From that show,
8 years.
Johnny Bedford's retired. He won some bare knuckle boxing. Ronnie Yaya is shockingly still in the UFC. Jim Ayler is now bare knuckle boxers, retired from MMA. Alan Omer, gone. Talis Latis retired. Trevor Smith retired. Jared Rochelle, PFL maybe. Danny Omalekchuk, he's cut. Ramsey Nijam, I'm pretty sure he's retired. Beneil Dariush is the top contender in the world. Ryan LaFleur retired. John Howard retired. Tetsuya Kawajiri retired. Clay Guida still fights in the UFC. Roy Nelson and Nogueira. So there's two guys. It's a pretty good two guys. Clay Guida holding it down for the OGs, and Beneil Dariush is the top contender. So so much has changed. But like I've seen prospects come and go, have a full career. Like remember when Joanna and Jacek debuted? And that was my girl. And I'd watch her fight on Cage Warriors. And I was like, oh, she's going to win. Remember, I was like, that was my girl, okay? She's a no-name prospect who no one could pronounce her last name. She goes on a run. She wins a title. She becomes the GOAT. She makes millions of dollars. She loses it all. Not the money, but the prestige. Falls down the top of the mountain. And is now like semi-retired. Her best years are done. She had an entire career in the time that we've just been doing shows, man. So, yeah, at 31, I don't feel old, but yeah, I feel like traveled. But hopefully not as traveled as Phil Baroni, because goddamn, I did put out a tweet because it's like, what could I possibly say? But I'm working on a Mixed Martial Madness video because just all the Phil Baroni stuff with you. He'll just be one of those guys that people forget about and they'll never talk about again. And no, he's a crazy guy that went to jail, and all the legendary stories, all the gym wars, all the crazy shit that's happening. It'll just like people will forget about it. I got like a duty to, even though it's a bad legacy, I got like a duty to make sure people don't forget about these guys. So write a badass episode with the New York Betis.
That's your guy. Yeah. So 8 years officially that we've been doing this podcast under the banner Dogger Pass and Bookie Beatdown before this. And then, there was like another 2 years of like radio roundtables in school. So it's been a long run, and hopefully many, many more years ahead of us here, buddy. That is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed this show. For producer Megan and Cody Saftic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy, saying goodbye and good luck.